So it's Friday and you just got paid. Five Guys for lunch, happy hour with the boys, and a dinner date with that girl you matched on Hinge with last night, and she does not like the Cheesecake Factory. Uber Black bag's yours and it's gone. When it comes to our paycheck, it is so hard to know exactly what you do. And most of the time, that high of getting some money and getting paid makes us forget about planning for the future. That's why today I'm gonna share with you exactly what you should do every time that check hits your account. All right, the first thing you gotta do is figure out your monthly maintenance costs. For most people, personal finance just seems like a lot of work. And a majority of the time, we just convince ourselves that we'll get it done next time. Except next time never comes around. And that's why most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, even though we are one of the highest earning nations in the world. And that's because they commit one of the worst financial mistakes. In the finance world, we call it mental accounting. And that's when we track our money in our heads instead of actually writing it down and closely tracking it. So you sold that old project car that was an absolute money pit. And once the money hits your account, you input it in your head as extra income. So you get excited and you start spending it.
Got your girl in this bitch, she twirling on the dick.
The problem is that money should be treated the same way as your regular income. How can you ever grow your wealth if any money that comes from outside of your job, you treat it as extra income and you can't wait to part ways with it? The good news is there's a simple solution to this. Open up a spreadsheet and calculate your monthly maintenance costs. This should include all of the things that you need to spend money on in order to survive. This is gonna help you find out exactly how much money that you need every month to maintain your current lifestyle. Now let's get rid of the things that you don't actually need to survive, like your Netflix subscription, your coffee runs, yes, your Tinder Gold subscription as well. After a long and very stressful self-reflection session, you should be left with 3 buckets: housing, groceries, and utilities. Housing is super easy. This should include your rent or your mortgage. And it should not be more than 30% of your total monthly income. Groceries and food should hover around 10%, and this is anything from your grocery runs and the food that you get outside from takeout or from buying lunch. Utilities is where we're gonna put our bills. This should include your car insurance, gas, electricity, your phone bill, etc. All the bills that you have to pay every month no matter what. Some of these are gonna fluctuate. For example, if you take a road trip, then your gas consumption is gonna be a lot higher. Therefore, you're gonna spend a lot of money on gas. But overall, this category should stay around 10% of your monthly income. Now you have your absolute baseline. This is the bare minimum amount of money you need to make every month unless you wanna start living under a bridge. Aim to keep your monthly maintenance costs under 50% of your income. And if it's more, look for ways where you can lower your expenses. Do you really need that expensive apartment overlooking the city? Or do you really need 5 different streaming subscriptions when you can really just go on Reddit and find that for free? Or is it really sustainable to eat takeout for about 90% of your meals? These are gonna be hard and very uncomfortable questions, but that you need to ask yourself if you really wanna take over your finances and start really saving money. Figuring out your baseline and where most of your money goes to is probably going to be the process that brings out the most anxiety, but once you get through it, I promise you, it's going to pay you tons of dividends. Now, let me ask you this. How would you feel if you were able to put aside 6 months worth of that monthly maintenance cost? Just imagine the kind of peace you would have knowing that if you got sick or lost your job or got into a major car accident, that you would be okay. That's why having an emergency fund is absolutely crucial. We want to shoot for 3 to 6 months, ideally 6 months. If your income is not that high and your maintenance cost is, then 3 months is the bare minimum, okay? The beauty of an emergency fund is if any of the emergencies we talked about earlier happen to you, you wouldn't have to ask your parents for money or pull out your credit card and go further into debt or sell your Pokemon cards collection just to pay rent. You would have something to fall back on, and I cannot stress enough how good that feels. What if I told you that just by doing this, you would already be ahead of 50% of Americans, over half of the population? And that is because more than half of the American people do not have enough savings to cover a $1,000 expense. Now listen to me, emergencies do not include getting a table at Live Miami, a trip to the Bahamas, or going out to a steakhouse. That money should only be touched in the case of an emergency, like getting your car blipped if you live in the Bay Area, or a trip to the ER if you live anywhere in America, really. But that money should not be spent on leisure or luxuries. Okay, so while setting up our emergency fund, we need to also think about step number 3. Over 70% of Americans are in debt, and that is just something that we learn to accept as normal, but it really isn't. Maybe you bought expensive shoes or decided you need a bigger TV and you couldn't really afford it at the time, so you just pulled out your credit card and paid for it anyway. There's no need to feel shameful about it. It happens to all of us. This is literally how the credit card companies make their money. Credit card companies make it so easy for us to fall into that trap and just keep digging our holes further into debt. The worst thing about that is that it puts your income in a chokehold, right? It makes you a slave to that debt, and you can't really relax or spend money on the things that you actually want to until you pay that debt off. Instead of putting money towards our emergency fund or investing into your future or into your business, you have to pay hundreds of dollars every single month paying down that credit card or that car loan or that student loan. So forget about cutting your coffee costs or skipping on your avocado toast. Instead, if you have debt, focusing on paying that off as quickly as possible, and I promise you it's going to save you thousands of dollars in the long run. You don't believe me? Let's put it into perspective. Let's say you have a credit card with a $5,000 balance with a rate of 19% interest. And every month, let's just assume that you just make the minimum payment of $100 per month. It will take you nearly 10 years to pay that card off with an additional $4,700 worth of interest. So what is the best way to tackle paying off debt? Well, let me tell you, there are two ways really: the snowball and the avalanche method. The first method, which is mathematically more efficient, is going to involve paying off your highest interest and highest balance debt first. And then once that's paid off, then you move on to your next debt that has slightly lower interest costs. This is called the avalanche method, and the reason why it is the cheapest and most efficient is because your debts with the highest interest costs, such as a credit card with a high balance and high interest, those are gonna cost you a lot more in the long run because the amount of interest you pay every month is a lot higher than your cards with a lower interest or a lower balance. There's another strategy to paying off debt, and although it's not the most efficient, it kind of taps into that psychological aspect of our minds, and that's gonna be the snowball method. This method essentially works by you paying your smaller debts first, and then once you start paying those off, then you move on to your bigger debts and so on. This method creates momentum and it gets you excited about moving on to the next debt and paying that one off too. You'll be able to pay off the smaller loans fast, which will build momentum and get you really excited about paying off the bigger ones as well. After paying off all of your debts, you're gonna feel so much lighter. You're gonna feel so much less stressed. You're gonna feel like you can actually breathe and put your money towards things that you actually care about, and not just towards interest payments. And that's when we can actually move on to our next step, which is actually going to grow our money. When most people think about investing, the first thing that comes to mind are men in suits running around like crazy inside the trading floor in Wall Street. Apart from what you've seen in the movies, investing does not have to be stressful like that. In fact, once you understand the basics, it's actually fairly simple to invest for the long term. Einstein once said that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. Compound interest would essentially mean that you should have started investing yesterday. Don't worry, I know that when it comes to investing, choosing the right account to get started with can be very overwhelming and can actually be a barrier to entry, but that's why I'm here to help. First thing you need to find out is if your employer has a 401k match program. A 401k is a workplace retirement account that contributes pre-tax dollars, and a lot of the times your employer offers a matching contribution. This means that whatever you contribute, they will contribute just as much to a certain extent. Most employers do 3 to 5%. So let's say you make $90,000 a year and your employer offers a 5% 401k match program. That's $4,500 that you're gonna earn in extra money because your employer is going to match the 5% that you're already contributing pre-tax. All right, once you have maxed out your 401k, it is time to start exploring a Roth IRA. Unlike a 401k where you're contributing pre-tax dollars, a Roth IRA is where you're going to contribute after-tax dollars. So this is the money that already came into your bank account from your paycheck, you have just laying around, or you have extra savings and you want to put towards your retirement. This is the account you're going to use. But one of the beautiful things about a Roth IRA is that you can actually withdraw your contribution at any time. After you're done with both of those, it is time to explore opening up a standard taxable brokerage account. So if you max out the 401k and the Roth IRA, the money that you have extra, if you still want to invest that, this is the account that you're going to use. This account is going to give you access to the broad stock market, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to grow your money using this account rather than leaving it in your savings account. Now, one thing to take into account is that all investments incur risk, and the money in the brokerage account, it is not FDIC insured and it is subject to fluctuations from the market. But there's still one more thing you should do if you want to reach financial success, and this tip can actually propel you to the next level. This tip is not only going to help you generate some more money, but it could also help you live a more happy and fulfilling life. During your off time, explore additional ways that you can generate income through a side hustle or a small business. Most of the time, it is so much easier to stop trying to save money everywhere you can and just make more of it. In the modern society we live in today, with new advancements in technology, there are so many ways that you can make money online. A lot of the time, people find side hustles and small internet business a lot more fulfilling than their daytime job. And with time, they actually make the switch from their careers in corporate to something of their own, such as a YouTube channel, an e-commerce store, or a small business. If you have an entrepreneurial mindset, I would say definitely take a shot at yourself and invest into camera gear or learning a new skill or learning a business model that you can grow online, and just give it a try. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you're very young, so you have time on your side. This is the time for you to fuck up and make mistakes and try new things. And if it does work out, you could change the direction of your life. Like me, for example, I have a full-time daytime job that I love and I'm really grateful for. I'm definitely blessed to have that job, but I'm still out here working on my YouTube and on other side hustles because this is what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about business. I'm passionate about making videos. And if I just keep on working, I know that it will eventually work out. Work on it as much as possible. And once it starts generating some income, even if you don't intend on making a career out of it, you can use that to invest or to fund non-emergency expenses like travel or personal hobbies. If you want to take control over your life and your finances, then click over here to watch my latest video on how to lock in and enter a season with extreme productivity.